Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to be doing some live question and answer at the end of the session. So as we're going through everything, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments of the live event and we will be sure to address them either as we're going or at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started. I am Emily Robertson. I am owner and founder of Videri Creative Services. We're a digital marketing agency that works with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small businesses, bringing elevated marketing, making it accessible to everyone. We really specialize in marketing strategy, content strategy, and video production, which goes to most other digital marketing areas. And I am joined by Angela Duns this morning. Go ahead, Angela, introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. I am a LinkedIn expert focusing on helping attorneys and other high-level professionals with business development. So my knowledge of LinkedIn is pretty expansive, but I really focus this into what is business development on LinkedIn. And really, in a nutshell, that means relationship building. So how do you use this 2D platform to develop relationships that lead to opportunities?
So that is something we're talking about today is how do we use LinkedIn specifically for thought leadership? But then how do we take that beyond the LinkedIn platform too, which is I think kind of everyone's end goal is what do we do beyond the platform? So first, what is thought leadership? Thought leadership is sharing unique insights, expertise, and innovative ideas that are aimed to influence a very specific field. So it's a very specific audience, either in an industry or a niche, but it's aimed at very specific audience. And the goals of thought leadership are to establish trust, to provide valuable evidence-based content, and to share your unique perspective. And I will emphasize the one of the primary goals is not sales. It is not to score a lead immediately. That is not the leading goal of thought leadership. And I'll let Angela chime in because I know she has some opinions on this as well.
Well, another thing that people shy away from, but that really distinguishes thought leadership, is you need to take a stand. You need to really have an opinion about things. You know, one of my attorneys is an appellate attorney, but his thought leadership all centers around reducing domestic gun violence. And that's something that he helps municipalities with. But his stance is very, very clear. You know, if you don't stand for anything, it's really hard for people to rally around you and be drawn to you. So not only are you sharing high-level expertise, and everybody on this call is at a point in their career where they are a high-level professional and they should be sharing their expertise. And I think with solopreneurs, this is kind of a conundrum because we know what we know. And we've spent 20 years, 30 years amassing all of this information and we take it for granted. And sometimes the most basic knowledge is what our clients want to know. They don't want to feel stupid. They want to be able to make informed decisions about what professionals they're hiring to help them. So we need to help educate them and get them to a certain base of information so they can make those informed choices.
I think the more narrowly you can focus your perspective and your niche, the better you're going to stand out in such an oversaturated, noisy environment. And so part of that standout is optimization. And I'm going to let Angela take this one as well. But this is optimization for any content is important, but especially thought leadership.
Optimization is really going through a huge change. I mean, ChatGPT hit about 3 years ago, and we knew the world wasn't going to be the same after that. And so optimization it's very interesting. It's taking a very big shift. I just spoke with an attorney firm in Wisconsin. Last year, they spent $75,000 on SEO with no results. And my heart bleeds for them when I hear things like this. Um, what's working better now is what is called answer engine optimization. Now, this, and especially for attorneys and coaches, if somebody has a question and they pop it into Google or ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever your favorite search engine is, if you have a question, it's who is able to answer that question the best that is going to be top of mind for you. And so you can see how for coaches and for other people, if you've got a burning question about leadership or executive presence or sales or whatever it might be, and somebody is able to answer that question for you, they might be your go-to person. And then the other thing that I don't think a lot of people are aware of yet is the generative engine optimization. So this is, if you do a search in ChatGPT, where do those answers come from? Where does that information come from? And you can actually put together a business profile in ChatGPT and many of the other AI models so that you actually have a presence in those models and can be identified when it's your answer. Now, over Labor Day weekend, I'm getting bored. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, right? So I decided that I was going to have to get out of my comfort zone and start doing different things. And so I joined Read It and Substack. And I'm using those two platforms to really kind of figure out. Read It feeds a lot of the answer engine optimization because that's a place where people go specifically to ask questions, and 15, 20, maybe even more professionals will answer that question, and you can sort of sort through the answers and figure out what is true for you, what is doable for you in that specific situation. So Read It is something that really feeds into the answer engine optimization, as well as some of the AI models. But these are new places to go for answers and for you to come up in searches and reach your target audience.
And I'll just add in as far as SEO and content. I mean, that game has changed so dramatically in the last couple of years, but really because of AI. So to start ranking for anything is just so difficult and such a different game. But I will say that having video, especially video on YouTube, helps that because most people search Google for whatever they're looking for, and that's the rankings that we're usually referring to, and Google owns YouTube. So if you have videos on YouTube that are integrated with your website, with your LinkedIn, that are linking to your LinkedIn profile and your website and contain the important keywords and descriptions, that's only going to help your search rankings. In fact, if you have video and a website in your LinkedIn profile, that's giving Google that much more context to pull from when people are searching for information. So video definitely helps any sort of content optimization.
Yes, I would amplify everything that Emily just said. Video is definitely the go-to for the answer engines because it is chunkier. It's much more interesting to the algorithms to grab onto than something that's just text. So video is by far preferred, and they're changing the algorithms right now. There's a lot going on LinkedIn. I lost 300 connections yesterday. They're cleaning things up and changing things and doing a lot on the back end. And they do it every September. They think that we're really busy and we're not paying attention and we won't see what's going on, but they change the algorithms every September. And what I just found out is that any video that answers a question is the number one video form on LinkedIn right now. So what I really want you guys to think about is, what are those frequently asked questions? Get a page on your website that answers frequently asked questions. And you can design several different series of short videos that answer some of those questions.
Questions are my go-to topic for video content. That's the easiest place to start. You likely already have a list of questions that people are asking you all the time, whether that's in person, virtually on the platform in email. And so that's a great place to start it. Adding those videos, you can add those videos to your frequently asked questions page on your website. And, it's kind of that twofer. So thinking
Yeah, and
about, oh, go ahead.
when people tell me that they can't come up with content, go to your customers, go to your clients, go to your prospects. They're the answer to that content solution, because whatever it is that they want to know is what other people want to know. So don't rack your brain about things. Go to those FAQs. What was the last question that came up in a conversation with a prospect or with the client? That's what you want to answer.
Absolutely. So now we're looking at why thought leadership thrives on LinkedIn. Why is LinkedIn the perfect platform for thought leadership, Angela?
Well, I think anybody that attended our LinkedIn Live last time, I mentioned that junk content on LinkedIn has increased by 386% in 2024. And that is mostly due to I think, in my humble opinion. So there is a ton of junk content on LinkedIn. I'm sure when you scroll through the news feed, you're like, boring, boring, boring. We just keep scrolling, right? And junk content is something that people don't engage with. So there's no likes, there's no comments, there's no shares. That's how they judge that. So people are hungry for something that has substance, something that actually says something, especially if it's actionable. Now, there's a lot of people that get up on their soapbox and they use a lot of platitudes and they say, you got to do all these things. Well, we get overwhelmed by that. We get completely overwhelmed by that. So if it is simple and actionable and something that I can manage on my own, I'm going to be attracted to that type of content. So really make sure that your thought leadership is not too grandiose, but simple and actionable, because people really pay attention to that and it's memorable. You are going to become their go-to person. They are going to develop trust because, wow, this person is giving me a great answer and it's something that I can do about. They respect my time and they respect my professionalism. They're not talking down to me. They're not talking at too high a level. So that's the way trust is built, is when you can actually make a move from something that you learned on LinkedIn in a video. So really try to keep things back and scale things too. Don't put, I think when people start content, one of their temptations is to put too much content in one video. And that is overwhelming. One little tidbit, keep it short. 60 seconds is great. Now, if you're an attorney or it's a complex concept, 2 to 3 minutes is about the attention span of somebody if it's really interesting to them. And you're not looking for vanity metrics with thought leadership. It is the few. It is those few that really pay attention to you and consume all of your videos and content. Those are the people that will become prospects and referral partners.
Absolutely. So let's look at why video is perfect for thought leadership. And so obviously that combination of video on LinkedIn. Video gets 5 to 7 times a higher interaction rate, video posts on LinkedIn than a static post. And then often LinkedIn users are spending more time with that content, likely because they're watching the full video and it's longer. But that feeds the algorithm, the LinkedIn algorithm, and then helps, future posts, whether they're video or static or graphic or carousel, helps those get more impressions, get seen by more people. 42% of people who watch your video on LinkedIn are going to go visit your profile page, learn more. And then that's where, that profile optimization is important to make sure that your profile is website or your Calendly or wherever you want to drive interested leads to. Uh, and 61% of business to business professionals, decision makers, make up the audience on LinkedIn. So that is a huge percentage of your probably target demographic if you're a B2B company that you are able to narrow in on and deliver your message to. So how do you get started? Right. When you establish that thought leadership is super important, LinkedIn is the perfect place, use video. Where do you start, Angela?
Well, a lot of people have different opinions about this, but I usually start with ChatGPT. That is one of the first places that I'm going to go because I'm a creative. My brain is all over the place, and there are so many things that I would like to do, but I really need to narrow it down. So, one of the things that you really want to think about when you start a thought leadership program is really narrowing it down. Pick out 3 to 4 pillars, different topics that you're going to focus on as thought leadership. And you can probably tell that one of the ones that I've focused on myself and Emily as well is video. That is something that we like to focus on. And I'm going to tell you, the younger generations are much more likely to watch a video than read text. So video is really, you want to look at the trends and kind of see what's happening in your industry and pick 3 pillars where you really feel passionate about those topics. Because if you feel passionate about those topics, you're not going to run out of content. You're going to be able to come up with content at least once a week, if not twice a week, that's going to resonate with your audience. And then you really want to think about your target audience. What is important to them? And how can you apply your thought leadership into actionable things? Now, what is memorable these days on LinkedIn is not just listing a bunch of facts or statistics, those things help, but it's storytelling. How can you weave all of that information together into a narrative that makes it memorable? Storytelling is really the most successful thing on LinkedIn right now. And podcasts are the stickiest type of content on LinkedIn. So you really want to think about how you can get to be a guest on a podcast and use that storytelling ability. You know, those client success stories or those client disaster stories, those things that really make you memorable. You know, like that attorney firm that spent $75,000 on SEO that gave them 0 ROI. You know, those things are memorable. Being able to come up with solutions for things like that are cost effective is really memorable. It's something that people will think about. And then position yourself as an authority. You know, talk about your clients that are having success. You really want to demonstrate that ROI. I'm going to tell you, since the pandemic, we are not parting with our money very readily. We want proof. We want to know that we're going to get results when we hire a professional to help us with something specific. So you really have to demonstrate ROI. I mean, think about your own conversations with prospects. Are you demonstrating what is the benefit that they're going to have because they worked with you? And small analogies, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It can be just a small, quick story about how you helped somebody solve a problem. Those are things that establish you as an authority very quickly. And then you want to build that social proof. I'm working with a firm right now. We've put together, I mean, the very first thing we focused on was testimonials. And I made them these beautiful testimonials. They're the best work I've ever done on testimonials, and they won't share them. They don't feel comfortable bragging about themselves. So it's a process. It's something that a lot of people feel very self-conscious about, but it's so much more important for other people to say, this is how Angela helped me. This is how Emily helped me. Rather than you saying, this is what I can do for you. It's that third party validation that really makes a big difference. So for some of my clients, I share a testimonial every week and it works great. And we don't do it in a braggadocious way. It's really an informative way. It's an educational way of sharing testimonials. And what I tell some of my clients is it's really hard to get video testimonials. But what if you tell that story in a video? A client came to me with this problem, and this is what they had available, and this is the solution we came up with, and this is what they were able to do because we did that. It's really storytelling and it's problem solving. Don't think of it as being braggadocious. People want to know what are the solutions that you have, and they need it to be something that they can really get their head around and really understand. Oh, well, that might have been helpful for me too. You really have to allow themselves to put them in the place of a client of yours to see what it would be like to work with you. And those stories are really what help with that sort of thing. Speaking at events, how many times have you gone to see a speaker that was boring as hell? And it's usually because they didn't tell any stories. They didn't give you anything actionable. They didn't tell you anything that you could really get your head around and make a decision or do some sort of an action about. So really think about things from your client's point of view. Make it easy for them to follow along with what it is that you're trying to teach them. And then always assess and learn from what you're doing. You want to track your analytics. And I do that religiously for my clients. And Emily, I'm sure that you do too. You're more rigorous about analytics than I am. I follow them. But there's always a lot that you can learn from, why did something bomb? Why was something super successful? Was it the thumbnail? Was it the hook at the very beginning? Was it the call to action at the end? You really want to think about what's working and then amplify what's working.
Absolutely. And I just want to piggyback on the testimonials and video for testimonials. If you can get a client to give you a video testimonial, that can go so far. You can use it as a quick testimonial. You can pull some quotes for social media graphics. You can turn it into a mini case study. You can present it as a mini case study, as Angel was talking about. If you're telling a story, I have a client who does this religiously as part of her kind of wrapping up and offboarding with clients, asks for a video testimonial, just ask them to send in a quick selfie video, answering a couple questions or just speaking on their experience with her. And that always dominates, top views of her videos, and it adds great content to the website too. So don't overlook video testimonials, and don't feel bad about asking for honest feedback. This is also an opportunity for you to learn, what things they liked and went well, and maybe things that could be improved as well.
Super powerful.
So outside of LinkedIn, what are some other areas to build your authority? Um, Obviously your website. You want to put everything that you're doing on LinkedIn. You want to put on your website as well. LinkedIn, I think, is the prominent place for thought leadership.
One of the things that I ask thought leaders is, are you on LinkedIn? And are you sharing information on LinkedIn? Because I would argue it depending on what your field is. If you are not using LinkedIn as a thought leadership platform, you can't really call yourself a thought leader. It is the number one platform for attorneys and coaches and lots of other people. Where is somebody going to look you up? Where is the first place that they're going to be able to really see what you're all about and see your photo? Now, sometimes you can find out that information on the website, but LinkedIn is a place where you also have recommendations and things that have that social proof about what you are as a professional. Are you really all you say you are?
And we already talked about YouTube, but if you're doing any sort of video on LinkedIn, whether it's thought leadership or otherwise, and you're wanting to be found by new potential clients, your video should be on YouTube. That is, it's kind of a no brainer. It's a free platform. You put in the right descriptions and titles and thumbnails, and there are, programs in AI that can help you with that now, making sure you're doing the right research. But it just amplifies your ability to be found, and seen as a thought leader. And especially if you have multiple videos and you set it up so that at the end of one video, people are introduced to a different video on a different topic, that just kind of keeps the ball rolling.
And then all the rest of these places are definitely, I just started another experiment. I actually did publish a newsletter on LinkedIn, Emily. I did it this week.
I didn't see that.
And it's so funny because I forgot that I had scheduled it. And yesterday, there were like 100 people that looked at my profile, and I'm like, wow, that's got to be a mistake. How can 100 new people be looking at my profile? And then I remembered that I released that newsletter. I got 500 signups yesterday for that newsletter.
It's
Now,
amazing.
yes, I have been building my email newsletter for 5 years, and I haven't quite yet hit 1,000 after 5 years of building it. And yesterday I got half that many on a LinkedIn newsletter. Now, I don't own that list of email addresses. That is owned by LinkedIn, and so a conversion strategy to switch them over to your email newsletter is something that you want to do so that you don't ever lose that. But it's a great way to get new subscribers, because I'm going to bet that most of them are not duplicate.
That's an amazing, like, 24, 48-hour return return on your time investment right there. And such a good case study too. So, and we've already talked about podcasting. Podcasting is kind of the hot thing right now. I just helped a client launch their podcast this week, and already we have tons of subscribes and views. And that is great for amplifying content, across the board on LinkedIn, definitely on LinkedIn, both the links to the full podcast and pulling out clips, using that as content, thought leadership content on LinkedIn for you, is amazing. So, I see that we have some comments here that our audio and maybe our stream quality is not great, and I certainly apologize for that. We are trying out a new platform, and with that as a learning curve. There was a question that will we be providing a transcript, and yes, we can provide the transcript, and we will provide a cleaned up recorded version of this that you will be able to hear. So thank you for hanging in with us. We have a couple of minutes left for any questions. If you want to drop them in the comment of the LinkedIn Live event, we'd be happy to answer them. Thank you for joining us on your Friday. And I will hang out for a couple minutes and look for any questions. Angela, do you have any wrap up thoughts?
I would love to hear if anybody has questions. And I do just want to reiterate, it's Friday. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate you spending some time with us today, and I hope that you got a lot of value out of this.
Yeah, actually, I have a question. So, thinking of thought leadership, and LinkedIn is still a numbers game, right? So, you need to not only put thought leadership content out there, but you also need to work on growing your connections and your relationships, correct?
Yes, yes, very important point. I actually won't work with somebody that's not actively networking in real life, because one of the things that feeds your content, all of those new connections that you make, for the first 2 weeks that you're connected, LinkedIn will actually send them a notification every time you publish something, whether it's a newsletter or a post or a video. Anytime you share content, LinkedIn sends a notification to them. And it's kind of a honeymoon period with that new contact. You're just getting to know each other, and content is one of the best ways to do that. So they're like, oh, that's my new friend from, whatever conference I went to or a networking event. And they're going to check out your content. And that is an awesome opportunity to gain some new loyal fans for your content is when you're really connecting. I have noticed with clients of mine, if they're not actively networking and adding people into their network, their content kind of gets stale. It falls flat. You need those new viewers, that new excitement, those, not the same 10 people that always comment on your stuff, but those new people, so that the algorithms can see that you're reaching new audiences, and the algorithms will amplify your content as well. So, and it's some of those comments and new questions that spark your ideas for content. So it's super important to keep adding people to your network.
Another quick question before we go. How often should you be posting thought leadership content?
Well, and that depends on a lot of things. But I usually tell my clients, start with once a week. I mean, seriously, start with once a week. You can establish yourself as a thought leader posting once a week. And I'll tell you why I know this is absolutely true. I finished up last December with a full year thought leadership client. And within 9 months, he went from 5,000 followers or 5,000 people in his network to 15,000. Now, he's a business owner of 2 HR tech companies, and it was actually his employees that begged him to get on LinkedIn and establish himself as a thought leader because nobody knew who they were and they couldn't do their jobs as salespeople. And it's amazing to me. He posted once a week to 15,000 people. And he still had amazing success. Now, occasionally, if they did something, he has offices all over the world. So he went skiing in the Alps with 2 of his board members, and they posted a picture of them skiing in the Alps. And of course, that got an awful lot of attention. So occasionally, we would put some personal things in there along with his thought leadership. But he had great success, even with that big of a network, posting once a week. And we just made sure that it was really thoughtful content that was easy to digest.
Do you recommend supplementing thought leadership content with other types of content, or can you go the
Always.
straight once a week thought leadership route?
I always recommend using some personal content occasionally. People want to know who you are. You cannot establish yourself as a thought leader if you're not displaying your values. And those personal posts really show people, I mean, it's like peeling back the layers on the onion. It's showing, what's in your heart. Well, what are your thoughts? What are your values? Those kinds of things are what attract bigger and better audiences to your thought leadership. So don't shy away from sharing personal things once in a while. Just make it thoughtful. My recommendation, if you've never posted that kind of thing, is get it all written out on paper or on a Word document. Get it all out first, and then take a second and step back, and then figure out what is the point of this post. I mean, here's what I want to say, but what's the point? And then pull out a headline and think about who is the audience for that content. And then kind of focus it. And you can always get ChatGPT or somebody else to rewrite it for you. And you can take suggestions from that or not. I don't usually do that, but it is helpful to find titles in content sometimes to do that. But you really want it to be something that's thoughtful. What is the takeaway that you want people to get from that kind of thing? That's how you leverage personal sharing.
Absolutely. Great, great tips, Angela. Thank you so much for joining us again on your Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll let you know when the cleaned up version of this is ready to review. And thanks for hanging with us. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.